People are asking about Garrett Wilson. That kid looked super smooth in the spring game, and I guess from what I hear, that's just an extension of what everybody saw in practice, that once he stepped on the field, he showed, yeah, I am truly a five-star and ready to play. He's just that talented.
Yeah, he may be. We think the highest rated wide receiver that Ohio State has signed in quite a while. We were discussing it. Ted Ginn Jr. was the number 2 overall prospect in the country back in 2004, although he was mostly looked at as a cornerback, although he didn't hardly even rep at cornerback before they moved him over to wide receiver in that freshman year. And then the rest was history. Now he's a 13-year NFL veteran, but Wilson has got some uncanny ability, and he went up over a defensive back in the spring game, caught a touchdown pass, very impressive. Ironically, it was from his high school teammate, Matthew Baldwin, who he will never, it seems, get to play in a regular season game together, and Wilson's probably displeased by this whole set of circumstances as well, to lose a friendly face and a guy who was here last year, one of his friends probably to not be around. But Wilson, tremendous athlete, great route runner, great athletic ability for you'd say he's right around 6 foot, 6'1" maybe, and has got incredible leaping ability, as we saw, to high point the football and make those plays. And so I think he's a guy that you're going to see quite a bit. It seems to me like the 3 starters at wide receiver will probably be the 3 seniors, with Austin Mack, KJ Hill, and Benjamin Victor. But then you've got probably nearly as talented a group coming in off the bench with Chris Olave, also Garrett Wilson, and Jalen Harris when he's healthy. He missed the last little part of spring. CJ Saunders, the former walk-on, he made a couple nice plays in the spring game as well. So they are pretty deep at wide receiver, almost 3 deep at each position, and I think they're going to rotate a lot of guys and get a lot of people involved. And again, I don't think you're going to see an offense that is going to come close to the throwing numbers that we had last year with Dwayne Haskins throwing for just shy of 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns, but it's still going to be impressive nonetheless with Justin Fields now the unquestioned number 1 quarterback going in to the summer. And obviously the biggest thing for the Buckeyes will be keeping him healthy at this point and keeping him out there on the field.
Talking Buckeyes, we've got Steve Hellwagon on the line. You can join him at Bucknuts. It's the 247 Sports platform for Ohio State athletics, Ohio State football coverage in particular. We've got the NBA fan commenting on the live chat. Basically, he's wondering about the defensive scheme, and that the bullet position seems to lend itself to one approach versus maybe the personnel not necessarily buying into or contradicting what would the bullet position would serve, and maybe a 4-3 defense being better. I don't know if you've heard anything in regards to your interviews in the spring on what would be best for this defense.
Well, I think that, again, they are looking for ways to get the best 11 guys on the field in every situation. And, I'm not going to get wrapped up in it. I think that the defense, whatever they do, is going to be an improvement over what they had last year. The big key is when you get into the big games, are they going to be able to hold the major opponents down and create a winnable situation for the football team? And I don't have any doubt about that. I think that the defense as a whole is going to be pretty strong. And as long as they, regardless of what they do in the back 7, as long as they've got the 4-man front, with the likes of Chase Young and Tyreek Smith. I went back and did a research article looking at Justin Fields and his play in the spring game. And the thing that kept hitting me between the eyes was how Tyreek Smith was living in the backfield. And I don't think that bodes real well for the guys who were playing on the offensive line, Nicholas Petit-Frere and Josh Allaby were kind of pressed into service with the first team on the offensive line. I think Brandon Bowen's going to be at tackle, and the Rutgers transfer Jonah Jackson is going to be at guard when push comes to shove in the fall. Jackson hasn't even arrived on campus yet. So in my way of thinking, you set the tone up front, coming all the way around the bend with Tyreek Smith, Robert Landers, Devon Hamilton. He made a couple nice plays in the spring game as well. Chase Young. You've got, an outstanding defensive line that can get after opposing quarterbacks. And so I am of a mind that they're going to set the tone for the defense. Malik Harrison can run. He had a play where he tracked down Justin Fields running sideline to sideline. He showed amazing speed, I thought, as well throughout the spring. So he's going to play. They've got a three-man competition at middle linebacker, Baron Browning, Tuff Borland. Those two guys are holdovers, and then Taraja Mitchell, who's a sophomore, he's going to get a chance as well. So I think that, between the front four and those two linebacker spots, they got some pretty solid people who are going to play. And then that third linebacker spot, Pete Werner would be the starter right now, but that's the one that would come off the field for the Bullets. So if they have a down and distance and game and time and yard line situation where they think it behooves them to go to the fifth defensive back, and it's this Bullet, and it's a guy who can support the run and make plays sideline to sideline and help in coverage, I have no problem with this. I don't think the production was all that great from the linebacker group as a whole last year, so I'm not sure exactly what we're kvetching about. I mean, Jeff Hafley and Greg Madison are experts. Jeff Hafley coached in the National Football League. There's never been a situation that Greg Madison hasn't seen in his time as a coach. If they put their heads together and said, well, we've got Brendan White and Sean Wade and Jeffrey Okuda and Jordan Fuller and all these other guys, Damon Arnett coming back as well, those are five pretty good players. So if they have a situation where they're trying to get all five of those guys on the field, the fifth one of those guys may be better than the other linebacker they put out there. So, again, this is not my forte. This is not my area of expertise, designing winning defensive football. But if that's what they think is what's going to happen for them to contend, I mean, most of the teams they play run the spread at this point and some variation of it. And if they feel that this is the best way to attack the spread is with this, then so be it. My guess is when they play Wisconsin, who lines up and tries to run over you, or Michigan State, which is more of a pro-style offense, well, yeah, maybe you'd stick with your 4-3, and it's the soundest way to attack that offense. But most of the teams you're playing are spread teams with three wide receivers, a one back set, one tight end, maybe two tight ends, whatever it may be. And to me, this just makes perfect sense. I mean, you got beat last year on plays in space. I mean, bigger than anything, plays in space killed Ohio State last year. They weren't bombs. They were plays that started as running plays or short passes that turned into long plays. And if they feel that this defense is what it's going to take to curtail those plays and make teams go station to station and get 10 yards and move the sticks and get 10 yards again and move the sticks, Ohio State, with the way they're going to move the ball offensively, they're going to win the battle field position all night long against whoever they play. If they just get a first down or two and then have to punt the football, they've pinned the opponent back. I mean, Drew Krisman was a tremendous weapon for Ohio State last year, punting the football, as was Johnston prior to him. And they've got a formula in place on how to play the overall game of football. It's honestly to play great offense at this point because you've recruited so well. You have talent across the board. Move the football, and the best defense is a good offense. Maybe at some point, I don't know, but and this came from Jim Tressel years ago. He said, if we can pin the opponent back and they have to get 6 first downs to score a touchdown, that's awfully hard to do. So stop the big play, pin the other opponent back, and make them have to go 70, 80 yards against a sound defense. That's a tough task in today's modern college football.
Exactly. You're playing the probabilities there because you're forcing the offense to be perfect. And you may not make a defensive play to stop the drive, but they misfire a pass, they drop one, they have a penalty. A number of things can happen when you extend the drive and force them to go 85 yards instead of go 60 yards. And that certainly plays into the hands of the defense and the probabilities of getting a stop. Again, not even just based on your defensive prowess and being able to make a play on defense, but them just making a mistake and getting themselves behind the sticks. We got Steve Hellwagon on the line. Steve, I believe you certainly addressed what was going to be my next question, courtesy the live chat concerning the linebackers and people's concern about the linebackers. And you certainly addressed that again with some struggles in space against the likes of a lot of the teams that we mentioned outside of, yes, i.e. Wisconsin in particular, Michigan State, the Oklahoma game from 2 years ago, even though that defensive performance start to finish, both against Oklahoma, who only had 9 points on the board going into the fourth quarter, and for the entire season was much better. When they had issues, it was covering those backs in space and the tight end and so forth at the linebacker position. But Ohio State believes they're better fortified and from a scheme standpoint, better prepared to give these kids a simplistic defense that they can just run and hit and use their athleticism to get the job done.